Stormhammer opened his eyes as the countdown reached 0. His fleet spread into a crude line, facing an enemy formation that formed an almost solid wall of opposition. Swarms of simple-minded drone starfighters reflected the light of a distant star, glittering like dust, suspended in the void. A flash of memory struck him, remnants of Hive Fleet Gorgon, endless swarms of monsters filling space with teeth, claws, and living weapons. And yet, he had destroyed them. One clever tactic after another, he had chipped away at their defenses, stripping them of protection and their ability to recover losses, until, at last, what passed for the Splinter Fleet's flagship was torn apart. This battle would be no different. No, on the second thought, it would be very different. He had suffered heavy casualties against the Tyranids, but he had been young then. Now he was older, experienced, and far better informed. Only 2 seconds had passed as these thoughts raced through his mind, his subtle cybernetics allowing him to process them far faster than before. As the 3rd second ticked by, he spoke a single word, a command that would begin his enemy's destruction. Launch! At once, every vessel capable of doing so fired torpedoes, while fighter squadrons surged forward to match their speed. It was a breathtaking sight. 29 torpedoes came from the Tau vessels alone. The Tarelian and Pavukhani fleets on his right launched 11 more, while the Kin fleet on his left fired only 4. Some would consider this far from ideal, but it all was part of a plan. They would smash the enemy's core and watch the rest scatter to the winds. Even now he observed activity across enemy communication channels, artificial minds working to break their codes, though it was hardly necessary. The pattern and origin of transmissions already revealed how divided they were. There was no single commander overseeing the defense. Each faction followed its own leadership, and while they cooperated in theory, in truth they were anything but united. The lack of centralized command and their inexperience would be their undoing. Prepare the next salvo and the second wave of attack craft, he commanded before switching to fleet-wide comms. This is Koro Isfamang to all ships. 1/4 thrust forward. Stay in formation. In short order, the engines of the Commonwealth fleet flared with power as they began their slow, deliberate advance. Ahead of them, starfighters from both sides clashed in a violent burst of light, torpedoes punching through the chaotic swarm and streaking towards their targets. A small, selfish, sadistic part of him wished to see the look on his enemy's face as the torpedoes finally reached them. Vak Ruley gritted his teeth at the sight of the approaching enemy attack. A swarm of starfighters and frankly gigantic missiles that were closer in size to freighters or even small patrol craft than anything that could be reasonably be called a torpedo. Just another expression of the insanity of those strange aliens. A small one compared to the sheer madness of launching an attack instead of fleeing, as any intelligent creature surely would. Thankfully, the fate of fools and primitives is one and the same. He thought with contempt as he turned to his crew. Order the starfighters to engage their counterparts. Our guns will handle those oversized missiles, he commanded confidently. And why shouldn't he? Standard torpedoes were difficult to counter due to their size and the close range deployment by enemy starfighters and bombers. But the Tau had launched their weapons from a ludicrous distance, well beyond even his starfighter range. By the time they entered turbolaser range, his crews would have perfect firing solutions. They would be destroyed in moments. For all their talk of endless war in their home galaxy, the Tau showed no real tactical or strategic sense. Their formation was little better than a straight line, and their attack as straightforward as that of a child. Amateurs, he mused, watching as waves of starfighters from both sides finally clashed. Blue and red streaks of plasma lanced through the space as pilots exchanged fire with the unfeeling droid mines of vulture droids. Explosions marked the destruction of craft on both sides. And yet, he frowned. They were losing more starfighters than expected. Yes, the Tau were taking losses, but his own casualties were higher than anticipated. Just starfighter tactics, he ordered, rubbing his chin. Break their formations, hunt them down one by one, and show me those Tau missiles. They should be entering range of our cannons any moment now. Moments later, the tactical hologram shifted from the starfighter engagement to the incoming missiles. They punched through the chaotic swarm largely uncontested, as his droids remained focused on the opposing fighters. There were more of them than he expected. 29 in total. And they were massive, nearly 60 meters in length. That suggested siege weaponry, something meant to break formations or bombard planets. Either way, they would be disappointed. 6 Munificent-class frigates guarded the trio of Lucrehulks, including his flagship, Balance of Power. Together, they had more than enough firepower to wipe every single missile from the void. And with enemy starfighters tied up, there would be no opportunity to exploit any evasive maneuvers. Not that such maneuvers would be necessary. The frigates opened fire. Vuk grimaced as the first salvo missed completely. But moments later, the first torpedo was destroyed. Interestingly, it produced only a minimal explosion. There must be a safety mechanism, he thought. Something to prevent premature detonation. Another salvo followed, and the missile dodged. He blinked. Around him, several crew members did the same, stunned into silence as the incoming torpedoes began evading incoming fire with unnerving precision. What? How? He sputtered before regaining control. Intensify fire! He roared. Do not let them through! More guns joined the crimson storm, filling the void with overlapping streams of fire. Missile after missile was destroyed, but not fast enough. His eyes widened as 2 torpedoes slammed into the forward Munificent frigates. The detonations blossomed into brilliant flowers of blue plasma and incandescent debris. When his vision cleared, terror seized him. Through the fading inferno, no fewer than 5 torpedoes streaked directly towards his flagship. Launch starfighters! He screamed. Launch them all! Stop them! Stop them! Too late. The pounding of his heart drowned out everything else. Reports from other ships, status updates from hangar crews, even the Admiral's frantic calls. All of it faded before the blinding light of the incoming torpedoes. 4. One had been destroyed, but it was far too late. He watched in silent horror as 2 torpedoes struck his flagship, slamming into opposite sides of a great ring. They burrowed deep before detonating, flooding the hangars with plasma fire and reducing every docked starfighters to molten slag. A third struck moments later, shattering a section of the ring as if struck by the fist of an angry god. The blast hurled him from his feet. He hit the deck hard, groaning, and then he saw it. The last torpedo. A sleek messenger of death, cutting through plasma fire and debris, flying straight for the core ship. Straight for him. Vak Ruley couldn't move, couldn't even scream. The world fell silent as the torpedo grew larger, filling the viewport. He had once heard that in moments of extreme stress, time slows, each second stretching into eternity. Now he understood. He watched as the torpedo's tip shattered the transparent steel. Air began to howl into the void. He felt himself dragged forward, pulled towards the oncoming weapon in a final, unwilling embrace. Metal screamed and twisted as the hull failed. His body met the missile, then stretched, then tore apart as his consciousness faded into nothing. Vak Ruley, Neimoidian captain of a balance of power, existed for 1.6 seconds as a bloody smear across the surface of a Tau torpedo before it detonated. Impossible! How? We need to run! His crew screamed in terror and disbelief as balance of power, a Lucre Hulk that stood before his fleet, suddenly exploded. It was surreal. Lucre Hulks were behemoths, indomitable, and yet one had been annihilated in the opening salvo of those ludicrous Tau torpedoes, while the other two were crippled before his very eyes. Gozar Kurad, the admiral of the Rune Defense Fleet, was no true military commander. He held his position not through merit, but circumstance. Having once served as a corvette captain in the Republic Judiciary Forces, and more importantly, because his cousin, Silvar Korad, was the marshal of Rune's military, second only to Kung himself. Command of an aging Invincible-class dreadnought had simply been a bonus. Though old, the vessel was massive and heavily armed by Outer Rim standards. Its mere presence was enough to deter pirates, allowing Gozar to live comfortably while his subordinates patrolled nearby systems in far smaller craft. Not that there was much to patrol. Between corporate interest and cartel influence, Rune had no little conflict for years. At most, they chased off the occasional pirate or apprehended smugglers. That was the extent of it. The ships were understaffed, their skeleton crews supplemented by droids, a practical necessity for a sparsely populated world. But now, as the sensor data resolved, Gozar wished desperately for experience, for discipline, for a real fleet. 5 missiles incoming! The sensor operator shouted, though Gozar could already see them. 5 messengers of doom, each capable of destroying a frigate, together enough to shatter a Lucre Hulk. And they were coming straight for him. Intercept! He roared. All ships! Fire! Intercept those missiles! Launch starfighters! His voice cracked, climbing several octaves too high. Some ships acknowledged, others outright refused. His eyes widened in horror as multiple vessels, especially those crewed by hired mercenaries, broke formation and fled. Cowards! He shrieked, turning back to the rapidly approaching torpedoes. Intensify fire, damn it! Evasive maneuvers! Panic spread like wildfire through the fleet. His contradictory orders only worsened the chaos. Targeting faltered, gunnery became erratic, streams of fire lance wildly into the void, achieving little. One missile was destroyed, more by luck than skill. The rest kept coming, and as they did, the fleet broke. The sight of dying Lucrehulks, the unstoppable advance of those torpedoes, it shattered what little morale remained. Ships scattered in all directions. Gozar screamed curses as formation dissolved. He howled as another torpedo detonated amid fleeing vessels, consuming several corvettes in a bloom of blue fire. Then survival instinct took over. He ran. 2 dreadnought cruisers attempted evasive maneuvers and were erased from existence in blinding explosions. Gozar sprinted towards the escape pods. Crew members surged after him. He turned and fired. Blaster shots cut them down as they reached for the same salvation. He screamed curses at them, their lives, their families, as if their desperation were a personal betrayal. Another torpedo was coming, straight for him. He slammed the escape pod door shut, ignoring the frantic pounding and desperate cries from those left outside. He threw himself into the seat and struck the launch control. The capsule shuddered. The release mechanism, old and poorly maintained, lagged by a fraction of a second. A fraction too long. The wave of plasma consumed him just before the pod could launch. Martuk was a creature of logic, of calculations, statistics, and carefully constructed plans. And yet, even his discipled mind struggled to comprehend what he was seeing on the hologram. The center fleet was shattered, simply shattered. Balance of power was gone. Waves of profit had been reduced to its core ship, and Bringer of Wealth was crippled. Both sides of its ring had suffered direct hits, leaving most of its hangars destroyed. More than that, Pride of Rune was dead. Its prow had been blown apart, thick armor plates peeled away in all directions like a skin of some exotic fruit. 2/3 of the remaining Rune fleet were fleeing, ignoring all hails and commands to return to formation. The same was true for the surviving ships of the Techno-Union. They had broken ranks entirely and were heading for the nearest giant point. The Banking Clan and Commerce Guild are withdrawing, Dauphine said, finishing the thought before Took could. Took glanced at the tactical display and nodded. The 2 corporate fleets which had remained in the rear had begun pulling back the moment it became clear that the Tau were not bluffing. Now they were exiting the system in good order, ignoring the desperate hails and curses of the others. So they are, Took confirmed. How is your fleet? I lost 2 frigates, and Prophet's Dominion took some damage, but we are holding. Dauphine replied. I got lucky. The 1 torpedo that reached us detonated early, likely damaged. With shields at full power, we avoided serious damage. What about you? I was fortunate. Not a single torpedo reached my ships. Then again, they only fired 4. Took said, rubbing his chin. It's clear their allied fleets do not deploy torpedoes in the same numbers as the Tau themselves. He paused, watching a new development unfold on the display. Their squadrons are disengaging. And they were, swiftly and in good order. A few droid fighters attempted pursuit, but most simply drifted, awaiting orders. Help me re-establish control over the droid squadrons, Dauphine said, his tone somewhere between request and command. Route control through waves of profit and Bringer of Wealth. Took nodded, issuing the necessary commands. Roulet was a fool to centralize control through his flagship, he said, shaking his head. Centralized coordination improved response time, but when Roulet's ship was destroyed, so was the control network. The droid forces had been left directionless. their coordination collapsing at the worst possible moment. What had been a manageable engagement turned into a disaster. Now the Tau squadrons were disengaging, having suffered far fewer losses than they should have. Tuk grimaced as the system's strain warnings appeared. Our systems are under heavy load. Coordinating this many droid brains is inefficient, he muttered before looking up at the slowly advancing Tau fleet. We need a new plan before they strike again. As if summoned by the thought, the holographic image of Garamo Rock appeared, bathed in blue light. His expression was wild, equal parts fury and disbelief. Cowards! He spat. Cowards and traitors! Running at the first sign of resistance. If they had taken the forward positions I proposed, this would have never happened. Tuk and Dauphine exchanged a silent glance, but wisely chose to remain silent. Admiral, we need to change our strategy, Dauphine said. The Tau have a range advantage. We should fall back to a stronger defensive position. Agreed, Tuk added. We can use the planet's ring as cover. With that we... No! Rock snapped, eyes blazing. I will not order a retreat. We were caught off guard. That will not happen again. Launch all starfighters. Form a defensive screen. We are to prioritize those missiles. Another glance passed between the two captains. Tuk opened his mouth to respond, but was cut off by the blare of alarms. He turned just in time to see the Tau launch their second attack. Once again, massive torpedoes streaked from their ships, though this time in staggered sequence, their starfighters trailing behind rather than matching speed. Tuk was about to comment on the change when Rock snarled. Here they come! Order your droids to destroy those torpedoes! They are not to reach our ships again! The transmission cut. Tuk exhaled slowly. Pull your fleet back, he said quietly. The greater the distance, the better our chance for interception. Dauphine grimaced. Too late. The Commonwealth fleet increased speed while we were talking. They are already closed the distance. They expect us to break, Tuk muttered, entering new commands. I am considering doing exactly that, Dauphine admitted. We lost too many ships already. We should disengage. Rome is not worth this level of sacrifice. I agree, Tuk said, a bitter edge in his voice. Unfortunately, those paying us do not. So, for now, we fight. Try not to die, Tuck, Dauphine said dryly. It would be lonely being the only competent commander left in that federation. Likewise, Dauphine. The connection cut. Tuk refocused on the tactical display. His expression darkened. More missiles were heading his way. 6 from the center fleet had been redirected towards him. 10 instead of 4, he murmured. It shouldn't matter. We are ready this time. He glanced towards his officers. Direct starfighters to intercept the missiles. Reposition the frigates into dual-line formation, overlapping fields of fire. We will not make this easy for them. Tuk leaned back slightly, eyes fixed on the incoming threat. Something about this attack was different. And he could only hope that the adjustments he had made would be enough to survive it. Captain Dauphine watched with missiles closing in on his fleet. 17 of them, 6 more than before. The Tau had clearly shifted the focus of their attack. The first strike had shattered the center fleet, and now the attention had turned to him. But since we did not flee in panic like our allies, we are now the primary threat, he muttered, observing as his starfighters adjusted formation and surged forward to intercept the incoming missiles. He interlocked his fingers, forcing calm, and shifted his attention briefly to the distant enemy fleet. That distance mattered. They remained well beyond starfighter range, far outside turbolaser range, and yet they were still able to deliver devastating strikes. The wreckage of his frigates was proof enough. He found himself wondering how the battle might have unfolded if the defenders had advanced the moment the Tau entered the system. Disorganized, scattered, and uncoordinated, the attackers could have been overwhelmed, picked apart, one by one. Then again, he doubted any argument would have convinced their cowardly allies to take such a risk. This battle, they claimed, would never happen. The Tau would never dare to attack. They had been so certain, so confident that they ignored every warning, his and Martuk's. Perhaps the next time they will listen, he murmured, returning his full attention to the tactical display. The first torpedoes reached his distant starfighter screen. Vulture droids swarmed them instantly, descending like birds of prey upon the surprisingly agile and resilient missiles. Then, the first one exploded. Not as expected. When destroyed previously, the torpedoes had produced only minimal detonations. He had assumed built-in safety mechanisms, fail-safes to prevent premature warhead activation. What he had not expected was this. A violent eruption of plasma and crackling energy arcs tore through the surrounding space, frying dozens of starfighters in an instant. For 8 seconds, he thought it an anomaly. Then the second missile detonated in the same way. Another chunk of his starfighter screen vanished. "Change tactics!" he roared. "Limit the number of starfighters engaging each missile." "Commander!" one of his officers began, but Dauphine had already activated fleet-wide comms. "This is Loose Cross Dauphine to all ships. The torpedoes are anti-starfighter weapons. I repeat, they are designed to lure and destroy our squadrons. Do not swarm them!" He turned towards the gunnery crews. "Get firing solutions on those torpedoes. Fire the moment you have a lock." He looked back to the display and grimaced. 2 more missiles detonated amid defense clusters of starfighters, his orders arriving too late to prevent further losses. Encrypted command relays always carried a delay, a fatal delay. By the time his instructions propagated through the network, a 5th missile exploded within the formation. He checked the sensor data and casualty reports, his expression darkening. These were not simple plasma torpedoes. Each detonation released a powerful EMP burst. It did not destroy as many starfighters as pure plasma would have, but it crippled them. Sensors blinded, comms disrupted, targeting systems scrambled, weapons disabled. 5 missiles had neutralized nearly 500 starfighters. He still had thousands at his disposal across 3 Lucrehulks, but many remained in the reserve. And now, massive gaps had been torn into his defensive screen. Through those gaps, the remaining 12 torpedoes and enemy attack craft pressed forward. "Deploy more starfighters," he ordered through clenched teeth. "As many as our system can handle. Bombers are to prioritize the torpedoes. Vultures will engage enemy squadrons." He watched as his orders were executed, with some success. More torpedoes were intercepted this time, far more than during the initial strike. But not enough. 3 broke through. 3 was sufficient. His frown deepened as one of his frigates vanished in fire. And then 2 flashes of blue plasma erupted almost simultaneously. Merchant's Reward, Golden Ledger. Both Lucrehulks had been hit. "Status report." He growled, eyes narrowing as the dogfight spilled dangerously close to his flagship. Merchant Reward reports a hit on the starboard side of the ring. Hangars are destroyed, along with the majority of reserve starfighters. Golden Ledger suffered a portside impact, internal shields and bulkheads contained most of the damage. Significant losses, but not catastrophic. The Fine grimaced as his own vessel shuddered, enemy bombers slipping through and releasing their payload. And the current enemy assault? He demanded. Frigate FCM-302 reports heavy damage from enemy bombers. Damage to Lucrehulks remains nominal, for now. With additional starfighters deployed, the enemy is unable to land critical hits. Make sure it stays that way, the Fine replied curtly, shifting his focus back to the broader tactical display. It didn't look good. Remnants of the center fleet were being overwhelmed. Bringer of Wealth had taken a direct torpedo strike to its engine block while attempting to retreat, leaving it reduced to a drifting core ship, much like waves of profit. Worse still, 2 torpedoes had slipped through the Admiral's formation. One munificent frigate was destroyed outright, and Creditor's Wrath had taken a hit, losing one of its hangar bays. Damage eerily similar to what his own ship had suffered. Tuck's luck, however, had yet to run out. His Lucrehulks remained untouched by direct torpedo strikes, though he had lost 2 frigates. As if summoned by the thought, Tuck's holographic form appeared before him. "This is not ideal," he said without preamble. "No." The Fine agreed, glancing toward the enemy fleet, which had yet to fire a single conventional shot, or lose even one ship. "We may not survive another salvo. If they have another salvo," Tuck replied, rubbing his chin. "But even without one, they have already reduced our forces significantly. The center fleet is combat ineffective, our starfighter complement has been heavily diminished, and we have lost nearly half our frigates. And they are yet to lose a single ship," the Fine added. "And they are yet to lose a single ship," Tuck echoed. He was about to continue when something caught his eye. "Their squadrons are disengaging again." And indeed, just like before, after delivering their payload, the enemy starfighters and bombers broke off and withdrew in good order. Droid fighters gave half-hearted pursuit, but after the losses they had suffered, their controllers were far more cautious. Better to preserve what remained for the third wave, the one that would break them. Both Tuck and the Fine knew it. Neither said it out loud. They watched the enemy fleet in tense silence, expecting another torpedo salvo at any moment. Instead, beams of blue light lanced across the void. They cut through space with terrifying precision. At first, the Fine assumed they were overconfident shots, fired from well beyond effective range. Then one struck Bringer of Wealth core ship. The shields held, but only barely. Follow-up shots slammed into drifting wreckage, scattering debris in violent bursts. A few beams struck surviving ships of Rulei's shattered fleet with deadly accuracy. This was no blind firing, no luck. They were in range. Both men stood in stunned silence for several long seconds. "That's well beyond our range," Tuck said at last, his usual composure finally cracking. "Get me Admiral, now!" the Fine snapped, unwilling to waste another moment. Garamo Rock appeared seconds later. For once, he looked as shaken as they were. "Order the fleet to fall back behind the asteroid ring," the Fine said, his tone closer to a command than a request. "If we stay exposed, we will be cut apart." It took Rock a moment, but only a moment. Yes, agreed," he said, nodding quickly. "All ships, fall back behind the ring, divert maximum power to shields." This time, no one hesitated. The surviving ships moved immediately, the Admiral at last making the right decision, though far later than Dauphine would have preferred. Fistful of Wrath was already turning when the first volley passed nearby. One beam struck Golden Ledger, but the shields held. Another grazed his flagship, sending a tremor through the hull. Dauphine grimaced. Their situation had gone from bad to worse. And for all his skill, for all his experience, he was no longer certain there was anything left they could do to turn the tide. Xian, Swiftwing, smiled as she launched from lethal argument alongside her squadron. The Missari-class light cruiser cut through the void, its ion cannons firing its steady volleys, lances of blue light piercing the endless dark. The sight of Kurvatra unleashing its fury upon the enemies of the Tauva never grew old. Not for her. There was a kind of enlightenment hidden within the chaos of space combat. She had known it since the first time she took to the skies, so many cycles ago. She had been part of the first wave, and had the privilege of watching the enemy's center collapse under the combined fury of torpedoes and strikecraft. The speed, the precision, the purity of that attack. She could still feel it. It had been fast, brutal, and over far too quickly. All wings had been ordered to disengage and return to their carriers. By the time her squadrons returned, the second wave had already been launched. The brief sting of disappointment faded quickly, replaced by a familiar tension of waiting. Then, just as the second wave began returning for repairs and rearming, she and dozens of other squadrons were launched. This time, to maintain pressure. With the fleet steadily advancing, the distance to the enemy had shortened considerably. She welcomed it. She reveled in the presence of azure sting around her. The Barracuda was a graceful weapon, as all creations of the Tau were, a perfect fusion of Earthcast engineering and Aircast mastery. No simple droid brain could rival generations of selective breeding and lifetime of disciplined training. The Aircast were born for this, to rule the void, just as Barracudas, Mantas and countless other craft did across this battlefield. Each had a purpose, a role in the greater good. Theirs was dominance. The results spoke for themselves. Swiftwing had personally destroyed over a dozen enemy craft, suffering only superficial damage in return. Across the fleet, the ratio was much the same, and truthfully, the enemy's losses would have been far greater if they had been allowed to press the attack instead of disengaging so quickly. As she flew towards the retreating enemy fleet, she found herself hoping Command would not call them back again. "They are moving," she said over the comms. "About time," Star Lightning replied with a sigh. "They barely shifted since the battle began. Stubborn or stupid? Likely both," Coverstorm added in his usual measured tone. Another volley of ion fire lanced across space, this time targeting what remained of the enemy's central formation. Of the 3 massive carriers, Lucrehawks, she had been told, only 2 remained. And even those had been reduced to their spherical core ships, their great ring structures shattered and left drifting as wreckage. Not for long. One of the core ships took 2 direct hits. Its shields flared, then failed, brief crimson flickers marking the impact points. The hull beneath melted under the sustained energy. Then came the 3rd strike. It punched clean through the vessel, leaving a glowing wound that lingered for a heartbeat, before the ship detonated. And that's another one. Steady Turbulence said with a quiet chuckle. Easier than the simulations. Swiftwing had to agree. For over numbers, the enemy's droids fighters were nothing compared to Hive Crones or the savage interceptors of the Greenskins. She was about to respond when Azure Sting chimed softly. "What is it?" she asked. Her display shifted. Multiple enemy ships were broadcasting on all frequencies. Moments later, a trembling alien face appeared, its speech translated in real time. "This is Captain Zitan of Bringer of Wealth, or what remains of it. We surrender. I repeat, we offer unconditional surrender to the Commonwealth forces. Engines and weapons powering down. Please, do not fire." Another face followed. Neimodian. "This is Captain Laurie Wallace of Munificent Frigate MB-317. I offer unconditional surrender." Then a human officer appeared, wearing a simple uniform far removed from the ornate attire of Imperial Naval Command. "This is Captain Alphonse Zerakil of a Dreadnought-class cruiser Undefeated. We surrender." Swiftwing allowed herself the faintest smile. Even in another galaxy, humans carried the same pride. Azure Sting chimed again. New orders. "Their surrender has been accepted," she relayed. "Remain alert, but do not engage." Acknowledgements echoed through the comms. Her squadron, along with many others, maneuvered around the surrendered vessels. There was no resistance. Droid starfighters powered down as soon as their command ships capitulated, while piloted craft quietly returned to land aboard a lone surviving carrier. Swiftwing turned her attention away from those no longer a threat and back towards the remaining enemy fleet. Her eyes narrowed. "They are moving into the asteroid belt," Swiftwing said with a slight grimace. "Looking for cover." She glanced at her display, quickly reviewing updated orders. "Our mission remains unchanged. Engage the enemy, priority on escort vessels." "From what I see, they are all hiding in the belt," Cover Storm noted. "Then that's where we are going," Swiftwing replied with a sharp grin. "If you'd prefer the clear skies of Furious Net, just say so." The overpilot laughed. "Ha! In your dreams, Swiftwing. The belt will be a challenge, but we will manage. Lead. We follow." Her smile turned predatory as she tightened her grip on the control. Azure Sting hummed beneath her, eager for battle. She dove into the asteroid belt. Her wing followed. They weaved between tumbling rocks, slipping through narrow gaps and scanning for targets. They didn't have to search for long. "There," she said. "Enemy frigate, isolated, out of position, minimal fighter cover, mark it for bombers. Let's clear the way." Vulture droids reacted moments later, shifting formation to intercept. Their movements were smooth, but predictable. Swiftwing almost scoffed as she opened fire. The Barracuda's ion cannon sang, and another vulture vanished in a burst of light. Her wing joined in, striking just before the enemy returned fire. Crimson bolts streaked towards them, but missed. They danced through the incoming fire, disruption pods scrambling enemy targeting. Closing the distance, their burst cannons came alive, cutting through droid fighters in precise, lethal bursts. Swiftwing entered the flow of battle. Instincts took over. She guided her wing, firing in seamless rhythm, guns, missiles, movement, each action feeding the next. Enemy fighters fell one after another. Incoming missiles triggered alarms, and she released decoys without hesitation, watching explosions bloom harmlessly behind her. The dogfight lasted barely 2 minutes. Then she saw them. "Mantas inbound," she called, destroying another vulture with a clean shot. "Form up, escort pattern." Acknowledgements came instantly as her squadron broke through the thinning enemy screen to cover the bombers. Enemy fighters attempted interception, and failed. Manta burst cannons roared to life, tearing through attackers with overwhelming firepower until the path was clear. They gave you a barracuda, and you're still late. A familiar voice teased over the comms. Swiftwing stiffened in surprise. Stormlight? Is that you? The one and only, he replied with a chuckle. Would love to catch up, but we got a frigate to burn. Think you can get us in? Don't worry, Stormlight, she said, smiling despite herself. We will keep you safe, just don't miss. Haha, wouldn't dream of it. The Mantas accelerated, heading straight for the target. Barracudas formed a protective screen, scanning for targets. There were none. That bothered her. Yes, the enemy had taken heavy losses, but not that heavy. The thought lingered as they approached the frigate, weaving through defensive fire. At optimal range, the Mantas unleashed their payload. Missiles struck true. The frigate's upper decks and bridge erupted in explosions, followed by a chain reaction that tore the ship apart. That's another one down, Stormlight said. We got a situation a few sectors over. One of our destroyers pushed too deep and got surrounded. We are moving to assist. Understood. We will escort you. They turned as one, cutting deeper into the belt. Around them, battle raged. Fighters clashing in tight spaces. Escort ships exchanging fire between drifting asteroids. Then, Swiftwing saw it. The destroyer. Little Eye. It pushed too far, overconfident after the earlier success. Now it was trapped. Enemy frigates, cruisers and starfighters swarmed it from all sides, tearing into it with relentless fire. This is Little Eye. Situation critical. Main batteries offline. Engines damaged. We need immediate assistance. Swiftwing's eyes widened, then narrowed in fury. One ship stood out among the attackers. Marrow Drinker, she hissed. Ravax the Red's vessel. The pirate who had ravaged Furious Ned, who had slaughtered so many. Her people. He dies today, she said coldly. Stormlight, target Marrow Drinker, priority 1. Confirmed, A storm of crimson fire erupted from below. What? Swiftwing snapped, glancing at her sensors. Vulture droids. They had been hiding against the asteroid's shadow, clinging to its surface, waiting. Now they surged upward. Missiles followed. Evasive maneuvers! She shouted. Too late. The ambush hit. Star Lightning vanished in an instant. No scream, no warning, just debris, where she had been. Cover Storm took a hit, barely holding together, one wing torn open. 3 more of her wingmates were destroyed, but they weren't the real target. The Mantas were. Despite their defensive fire, the bombers were overwhelmed. One after another, they were consumed in explosions. Swiftwing cursed, fury clouding her thoughts as she fought to protect what remained. We've taken critical damage! We are going! Transmission from Little Eye cut off in a scream. She turned, just in time to see the destroyer break apart. Marrow Drinker unleashed a final salvo, tearing the vessel in 2. Swiftwing's sensors painted the aftermath. A third of her wing, gone. Half of what remained, damaged. Of the Mantas, only 3 survived. New target, Stormlight said, voice stained. Enemy light carrier. I will take it. You should withdraw. Stormlight, she began. He cut her off. Our reactor's compromised. Earthcast engineer is dead. We won't make it back, he said quietly. I can't shut it down, but I can overload it. She understood. Please, don't, she whispered. We all have our time, Swiftwing. Mine is now. Your isn't, he replied. Get what is left of my wing home. I will make sure Little Eye is avenged. A pause. It was good flying with you again, Little Bee. His manta turned toward a distant target, a Captor-class carrier, exposed and out of position. Now, watch how your big brother stings. His engines flared, pushing the damaged craft beyond its limits. Swiftwing watched in silence as he flew, graceful, even now, trailing blue fire from the dying reactor. Pilot and machine united in purpose. In the name of a greater good, Stormlight roared over the comms. Hear me and feel my sting! Enemy fire converged. Fighters gave chase, but they were too slow. Too late. The manta slammed into the carrier's forward hangar. A heartbeat later, it detonated. The explosion tore through the vessel from within, buckling its surface as fire consumed it. Swiftwing turned away. Her jaw clenched, her eyes burned. She fixed her gaze on Marrow Drinker, still lurking near the shattered remains of Little Eye. Savor this victory while you can, she whispered coldly. We are coming for you. Ravax roared in fury as cruel fate went up in flames. A single heavy bomber had slipped through the chaos, executed a perfect suicide run, and scored a kill. He smashed a nearby console with his mechanical arm, teeth grinding. Damnable blueskins! He snarled. Nothing had gone to plan. Nothing. The Tau arrival, the battle, the absurd casualties they had taken over Rune. All because of that slug. Zero. He wanted to keep raging, but there was still a battle to fight. The situation was bad, but not yet lost. And this skill proved something important. Even the Tau could bleed. Status report! We confirmed a third enemy ship destroyed. A crewman replied. 2 more are crippled and withdrawing. In fact, all Tau ships are pulling out of the belt. Good, Ravax said, allowing himself a thin smile. We pushed back their assault. With their belt as cover, we will bleed them dry. One by one. He said it, but didn't believe it. The Tau would win control of Rune's orbit. But he didn't care. He would not run, not from them, not from anyone. He would drag as many of them into the abyss as he could. An alarm blurred. Boss, Tau are opening fire. On what? Ravax snapped. On the belt itself, the crewman said in disbelief. Some kind of kinetic weapon. Something struck the hull. Then another. Everyone looked up. Small asteroid fragments began pelting the cruiser. Like a rain. Rain that was growing heavier by the second. Ravax understood. Out of the belt, he said. No one moved. Out of the belt, he roared. All rivers, pull out now! The Tau are turning it into a death trap! As if to prove his point, a larger fragment smashed into the cruiser, ripping off a turret. Nearby, a starfighter failed to evade and was torn apart by a cluster of fast-moving debris. Now! Power to engines! Move! Marrow Drinker surged forward, engines flaring as it fled the deadly storm. His fleet followed, weaving desperately between tumbling rocks. Trade Federation frigates broke away as well. Droid starfighters scattered in all directions. But the storm only intensified. Asteroids shattered, Fragments accelerated. A barrage of high-velocity debris turned the belt into a killing field. Fighters exploded by dozens. A kinetic round screamed past the bridge, trailing white light and crackling energy before smashing into a massive rock ahead, splitting it clean in two. "Evade!" The crew obeyed. Though ancient, Marrow Drinker had been heavily modified. Its engines roared, far more responsive than its original design allowed. It slid between massive fragments, shields flaring under constant impact. Not all were so fortunate. Corpse Eater, a dreadnought cruiser, lacked the agility. A shattered asteroid slammed into it, and it simply ceased to exist. No screams, no warnings, just gone. Ravax bared his teeth as more ships fell to the Tau's trap. In one brutal, elegant move, they had turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. A storm of knives. Moments later, Marrow Drinker burst free out of the outer belt, followed by the battered remnants of the rivers and scattering of surviving ships. "Most of us made it out, boss," a crewman reported, "but many are damaged and... the Hat fleet is gone." Ravax scoffed. Drogsam the Hat had brought a respectable force, impressive by Outerrim standards, not enough. Clearly his crews lacked the river's experience, or their will, or their luck. Ravax looked over his bridge. Morale was broken. He didn't care. He felt it. True Strike was here, somewhere in that fleet. The one who had nearly killed him. The one who belonged to him. He would find her. He would break her. Skin her alive. Make her beg. "Sir, they ceased fire," a crewman interrupted. "And they are advancing." Ravax turned back to the void. Something was coming. Something large. "Their ships will be weakened after passing through that storm," he growled. "Prepare concussion missiles. We strike the moment they emerge." He waited. Watched. And then his eyes widened. The thing emerging from the belt was enormous. A Bastion-class commerce vessel of the Serantok Mercantile League smashed through the asteroid field, its massive armored prow shattering or deflecting debris with ease. Moments later, a slightly smaller but still massive light cruiser emerged to its left. Then a combat barge to its right. Engines blazing, charging straight at them. "Evade!" Ravax screamed, panic finally breaking through. Marrow Drinker veered sharply, engines flaring as the crew struggled to avoid the oncoming giants. "Run!" Zatu's voice screamed over the comms. "Run, by the god!" Ravax caught a glimpse. The combat barge slammed into the dreadnought Bonebreaker, slicing it in half. "Screw you, Ravax! I didn't sign for this!" Another captain shouted. "We are heading for systems adjust!" The transmission cut abruptly. The light cruiser fired. A massive crimson beam launched through space and obliterated both a munificent frigate and the Captor-class cruiser in a single shot. Ravax stared in disbelief. Then realization struck. The Bastion, ahead of him, was charging the same weapon. Fear replaced rage. The massive vessel surged forward. Then impact. Marrow Drinker was thrown aside like debris in a storm. Alarms screamed. The hull groaned under impossible strain. But it wasn't a direct hit, just a glancing blow. The Bastion passed by, ignoring him completely. His guns remained silent. so did theirs. Even the most determined insect could not harm a Rancor. As his ship stabilized, Ravax watched the Bastion fire straight into a Lucrehulk. Shields collapsed, hull melted, and then, impossibly, the Bastion rammed it. The massive carrier shattered under the impact, torn apart as the Bastion continued forward, barely scratched. "Status! Report!" Ravax rasped. Silence lingered as crew struggled to recover. Then, "It's bad, boss," a crewman said. "We've lost control of maneuvering thrusters and primary engines. Damage is extensive. Engines are still burning at full power." A pause. "We can't change course." Ravax followed his gaze. Straight ahead. Rune. For a moment, despair flickered. Then it turned to rage. The Tau had taken his fleet, his ship. He would take something in return. "Abandon the ship," he ordered, heading for his private hangar. "We are going to Tauntum City." "Boss!" a crewman stammered. We can still run!" Ravax turned, eyes blazing. "I do not run from my prey!" he roared. "Rancor is waiting for me on the surface, and I will spill purple blood before I leave this system." He leaned closer, voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "If any of you think you can run from the Tau or from me, try it." A pause. "I will find you." Silence fell over the bridge. Then Ravax turned and strode out. "I will not die here," he muttered. "Not before I kill her." Garamo Rock was dreaming. It had to be a dream, a nightmare, nothing else. He must have eaten something bad the night before, because now he was being haunted by an impossible vision. The Commonwealth fleet tearing his armada apart. Step by step, systematically dismantling everything he had built. His master plan. And now they were coming for him. They had already smashed, literally, into his right flank, obliterating Sovereign Divided in a ramming attack. "Stay in formation!" he screamed, panic breaking through. "Launch all starfighters! They don't have enough of their own to stop them all!" Now, the voice of Martuk cut through the bridge. Of all the responses he expected, that was not one of them. "What did you just say, Captain?" Rock demanded, fury and panic colliding. "I refuse to follow your madness into death," Tuk replied coldly. "We are breaking off. The Trade Federation has lost enough ships. I will not allow your incompetence to cost us more." "You damnable!" "I concur with Martuk's decision," Luzcro's Dauphin said calmly. "My ships are heavily damaged, all escorts are gone, we are disengaging as well." "No!" Rock screamed. "I am the Admiral, I am in command, you will obey my orders!" But the channels had already gone silent. Tuk and Dauphin ignored him as the remaining forces broke away, engines flaring as they fled the battlefield. Worse still, the Commonwealth did not pursue. They let them go. The fleets on either flank fired only token salvos, symbolic gestures to hasten the retreat, while tightening the noose around what remained of Rock's command. "Traitors!" he spat. "Traitors! Both of them! His rage was cut short, as Titan of Commerce, the Lucrehulk directly ahead of his flagship, was obliterated by a concentrated volley from a Tau fleet above the asteroid belt. Rock gritted his teeth. "Sound the retreat!" he ordered. "Full power to engines! Get us behind the planet, now! Skim the atmosphere if you have to!" Then quieter. "I will deal with them later." Pride of Commerce turned, shields flaring as it broke formation. Rock sat rigid in his command chair, repeating the same thought, like a mantra. "I was betrayed. I am the Admiral. I am in command." The ship shuddered under incoming fire. Flames licked its hull as it skimmed the planet's upper atmosphere in a desperate escape attempt. But the Tau did not grant mercy. They recognized Pride of Commerce for what it was, the flagship of the Armada, and they would not let it escape. The Eye of the Storm Tau flagship opened fire. Ion batteries, rail cannons, pulse accelerators. A coordinated torrent of destruction slammed into the Lucrehulk, overwhelming its shields and tearing into its engine block. The massive vessel faltered, and then began to fall. "Admiral, engines are gone, shields are down, we are going to crash!" a crewman shouted, but Rock did not hear him. His mind had collapsed into denial. "They won't attack," he muttered. "Why would they attack? We have all the advantages. They won't dare." Crewmen fled to escape pods. No one stayed for him. The Lucrehulk groaned as atmospheric entry tore through its failing structure. Metal warped, hull plates buckled, fire consumed entire decks. Rock remained in his seat. "The Viceroy will reward me," he whispered, blind to the flames around him. "Yes, a promotion. I am certain of it." The ship broke apart, and Garamo Rock was consumed by fire. The Pride of Commerce shattered on entry, its burning remains streaking across Rune like a blood-red meteor shower. The sonic boom rolled across the planet below, and with it came the undeniable truth. Orbit above Rune belonged to the Commonwealth. And that's for episode 17. The Battle of Rune finally began, with a rather one-sided orbital engagement. Though I hope I managed to show exactly why and how the Tau managed to score such decisive victory. If anyone is wondering about final tally of the battle, the Commonwealth lost 3 ships, all escorts, and 2 other escorts were damaged. As for the defenders, good portion managed to escape, a good chunk was destroyed, and some were captured, with some fleets like that of Commerce Guild and Banking Clan leaving before the battle really began. For reference, if anyone is wondering about the Trade Federation casualties, they started the battle with 13 Lucrehulks and 26 Munificent class frigates. 5 Lucrehulks and 21 Munificents were destroyed. 1 Lucrehulk, or well, the core ship of one, and 1 Munificent were captured, with the remaining 7 Lucrehulks and 4 frigates escaping the system, though majority of them were damaged one way or another. So, predictably, a very expensive battle that will, without a doubt, affect the local trout population. Anyway, with the orbit secured, I will be moving on to the ground battle. Though I must warn you, I have things to take care of, including my health, so expect that the amount of videos will be lower than before. I'm also unsure about the shorts. We'll try to figure something out for your enjoyment. Now, I would like to thank the artists who contributed to this episode. Hayden Lumpkin, Makawi, Cubic Creator, and Blushchecart. Thank you for creating such incredible art for me to use. I also need to thank the highest tier Patreon supporters: Heimko, Boromir117, Xeragusta, Erizda9, Psab, Cell, Josh Travis, and Michael Pellison. I tip my hat to you. If you would like to support me, visit my Patreon or donate to Ko-fi so that the series could continue to improve. You can also buy my merch, that would also help me greatly. As usual, if you have a question, you can put Q&A on top of a comment and ask whatever you'd like. But remember, one question per person. Now, breaking the rhythm a little bit, I won't ask you for short ideas. No, this time I would ask you for ideas for locations. You see, I've been working on the map of the Tau Commonwealth, a proper map to show off for Season 2, with far greater detail than before. And I have a need of new worlds, both that from Star Wars and from the grim dark future. So, if you have an idea you would like to share, just put world at top of your comment, give it a name, get a general location on the map, and go to town with the lore. See it as a little contest, if you will. The ideas with most likes will show up on the map. And don't limit yourself to generic Latin-sounding names for worlds of the Imperium. I already have something inspired by Macedonia, Ethiopia, Persia, Spain, and Egypt. So if you can keep it to the Middle East/Mediterranean vibe for the names of the worlds, I would appreciate it very much. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. But I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!